Good morning. If it's still morning, I'm running on Eastern Standard Time, so I'm ready for lunch. But well, I'm here to talk about the German Reformed Church in the United States and the founding of America. Just a little bit about me before we begin. I've been involved with the E&R Library and Archives in some capacity since about 2014. I now currently serve as the president and CEO. My background, other than being a historian of the Evangelical and Reformed Church and the predecessor denominations, is both in archival and record management and nonprofit leadership. So a little bit about the E&R Library and Archives. We were officially first organized in 1863, although we do have evidence that our first system of archives was created in 1817. This makes us, as far as we know, the third oldest Protestant historical agency in the United States. We have two locations. Our central office and archives is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and a smaller branch location outside of St. Louis, Missouri. And our mission is to engage, inspire, and to educate people through the study and preservation of family and church history, putting to good use the records of the Evangelical and Reformed Church and its predecessor denominations, which we collect, preserve, and make accessible to the public. And you can learn more on our website there. Just a very quick overview of the Evangelical and Reformed Church, because it's not a name that you continue to hear today, and is a denomination that had the word "and" in it. That signifies that there was some type of combination or merger. So we begin with the German Reformed Church in the United States being organized in 1725 in Pennsylvania. Subsequently, there was a German Evangelical Synod of North America that was established in 1840 in Missouri. Those are the two bodies that came together in June of 1934 to create the Evangelical and Reformed Church. There was also a Hungarian Reformed Church that was organized in 1890. They came in to the Reformed Church in the United States in 1921 through what was known as the Tiffin Agreement. The Evangelical and Reformed Church really kind of ceased under that name in June of 1957 when this denomination moved with the Congregational Christian Churches, as Dr. Roberts talked about earlier today, to form what is today known as the United Church of Christ. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of our churches, Evangelical Reformed Church in Frederick, Maryland. But first, I don't want you to get confused with hearing the word evangelical here. This is not evangelical in the sense of the German Evangelical Synod that was organized in 1840. This church was organized on the Reformed Church side. We don't know approximately when it was organized, but we do know that its official records begin in 1747. We estimate sometime around 1740. But the word evangelical here simply means Protestant Reformed. It was discovered by Michael Schlatter, who was a prominent Reformed clergyman who helped other churches organize and expand in May of 1747. At that time, he assisted by preaching sermons and leading the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. The church was served by many intermittent clergymen, but the official and installed first pastor was a Reverend Theodore Frankenfeld. The picture that you see here on this slide is a historical image of the original building that is still located in Frederick, Maryland. I'd like to talk a little bit about Reverend Friedrich Ludwig Hennep. He was the first pastor to serve Evangelical Reformed Church for more than 5 years. Most pastors had only served for a year or two prior to him, but he served first between 1770 and 1784. He was born on October 7th, 1740 in Kaiserslautern, which is located in southwest Germany at the north end of the Palatinate Forest. He was the son of a minister, was educated at the Theological Seminary in Heidelberg, and arrived in Pennsylvania in 1725, where he first settled. He began his ministry at the Evangelical Reformed Church in Frederick, Maryland on October 8th, 1769. And during his tenure, he baptized a total of 810 individuals and confirmed 1,526. He resigned in October 1784 to accept a call at a church in Reading, Pennsylvania, but he quickly became sick and died before he could move. Interestingly, his remains were buried in a grave that was walled up with brick under the altar of the church at this time. However, they decided to replace that church, and so his remains were removed to make room for what is now known as Trinity Chapel. His ashes were gathered up on June 14th, 1881, were held in the church, and then he was reinterred on July 2nd, 1881, in a nice grave at the rear of Trinity Chapel. Pictured here is just a snapshot of his baptism in Germany. So Reverend Hennop was serving Evangelical Reformed Church during the Revolutionary War. We don't know for certain if he did fight in battle, but we do know he was very supportive of the soldiers. Reports indicated that Pastor Hennop held services for the Hessian prisoners that were incarcerated at what is now known as the Frederick Barracks. At that time, they were the Hessian Barracks in Frederick. And there is one quote here where when he learned that General Cornwallis had surrendered, he just gave thanks to God for the peace that the war had ended. And this is a picture of Trinity Chapel here, where Reverend Hennop's remains are interred. So Evangelical Reformed Church and the Revolutionary War. So at this time, all men between the ages of 16 and 50 were required to enlist. So it's highly probable that the list of male members in this church in 1775 played some role in the Revolutionary War in Frederick, Maryland. That list comes to us from a book that was written, A History of Evangelical Reformed Church Unto Us. And we can kind of use that as a roster of the Revolutionary soldiers from this church. Older men, ages 51 and older, often were associators or were on committees of safety or committees of observation. Some of the youths who were 15 and younger might have become boy guards at the Hessian barracks for the British prisoners, or worked in the poorhouse. All of this is evidence that in some way, while not everyone was in the battle zone in Frederick, Maryland, this church was really at the center of what was happening during the war in that area. And in some families, it is documented that 3 generations of men were involved in the war in some way or another. So this list that was taken from this history book of the Evangelical Reformed Church was also compared to the National Society of Daughters of the American Revolution, their list, and A History of Western Maryland by Thomas Sharp from 1882, and they've cross-referenced those names. Pictured here is a Revolutionary War pension and bounty land warrant application, and it's for a gentleman named Valentine Bruner of Frederick, Maryland, and we'll talk about his family in just a moment. I'd like to kind of pause for that just for a moment and talk a little bit about Francis Scott Key. While he's not considered to be part of the American Revolution per se, an interesting and connected tidbit of information to Reverend Friedrich Hennop is that he was baptized by Reverend Hennop in 1779. And interestingly enough, he would go on later to write the poem Defiance of Fort McHenry, which later would become our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, in 1814. So the Bruner family, they first arrived in the Americas in 1728, and that was the son of Joseph Bruner, who came in 1729. He came on the ship Allen from Klein, meaning small, Schifferstadt, in the Rhineland-Palatinate part of Germany. Joseph married his wife, Katharina Elisabetha Thomas, in 1783, and together they had 8 children. His firstborn son, Johann Jakob, who I had just talked about a moment ago, came in 1728, a year later. But the interesting part about this family is the Daughters of the American Revolution Patriot Index lists a total of 19 Bruners at this time. And we have been able to trace 12 of those 19 all back to this Joseph and Catherine Bruner that came into Frederick, Maryland from Klein-Schifferstadt. Pictured here is Schifferstadt, which is the oldest standing house built of stone in Frederick, Maryland. It was built sometime between 1756 and 1758. And it's one of the nation's finest examples of German, Georgian colonial architecture. Joseph Bruner first purchased the 303-acre tract of land on which this house sits. And at the time of his death in 1753, the property was conveyed to his youngest son, Elias, who built the 30-foot by 40-foot stone house. In 1974, the Frederick County Landmarks Commission purchased this home. It's now open to the public as the Schifferstadt Architectural Museum and was designated a National Historic Landmark in 2016. So this small snippet just shares a little brief history of the German Reformed Church and how Evangelical Reformed Church in Frederick, Maryland was involved in the Revolutionary War activities at this time. I appreciate you taking the time to come out today, listening to this presentation. If you'd like to learn more about our organization and other Reformed churches that would have been involved in the Revolutionary War, our contact information is up there. You can certainly follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at E&R Library and Archives. So thank you.